Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to a live talk with Becky Chernek. And it is actually Thursday night, and it's a special edition. And I am bringing Paul Machin, and I call him Mr. BlackBook, back on. And we are talking about the used car business, where we are, maybe talk about what happened at NADA and where we're going. But before we get into that conversation, for you guys that are new to this channel, I'm Becky Chernek, and I've been providing the very best in finance and insurance training, and not just F&I. So it's from the time that that customer touches down on that dealership website to working with BDC, from business development centers, working with your sales associates and working with them on those sales strategies, on that technology, on that workflow, to simultaneously working with that desk manager to finalizing this transaction with a designated F&I manager, or even that single point of contact. Now, for those that are listening in on YouTube, so if you like what we're talking about, do me a few things. If you would, hit the subscribe button, like us, and certainly share. We're also going live on Facebook. Two of my most favorite groups is F&I Today with Becky Chernek and F&I on the Edge. Now listen up, guys. You got to join this group if you're not in there already. Some of the most talented folks in the car business are in that group to help you along your way and really help you with your career in automotive retail, no matter where you are. And then, of course, we're going live on LinkedIn as well as Twitter. Boy, like I said, I've got a great guest featured speaker with us tonight, Paul Machin. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do. I can't imagine that people wouldn't know who you are, or dealers wouldn't know who you are, but go ahead and do that and talk to us about what you saw at NADA. What's the talk all about going on in the used car business?
Absolutely. So, Becky, thank you for having me, and I appreciate that. And again, I'll apologize to everyone here if you hear a lot of background noise. I double booked myself, but when you're in the business, when we're as crazy busy as we are, we got to do what we got to do to keep the performance on the go, right?
Amen.
And Becky,
thank you so much. You got to do what you got to do. But thank you for not
right.
standing me up.
Oh, you're welcome. So I'm a veteran in the industry, been around for a little more than 30 years. First half of my business career was actually running dealerships, owning a small dealership, and then transitioned. I was recruited by All Things CarMax. A part of my career with CarMax was open up the CarMax Greenville in Greenville, South Carolina. Loved doing that operation for about 5 years. Well, one of the founders of CarMax created DealerTrack, reached out to me and said, "Hey, I've got this business model, and I need someone like you to help me get more and more dealers on." I believe I was employee number 56 in the sales. So it was been an incredible run. And today I'm with BlackBook, been here for 4 years, representing the data side of the business. Think of it as the battery, right? We buy phones and it's supposed to work, but when a battery dies, it's no good, right? So it's the same thing with data. If you don't have good data in your systems, it's no good. So I get to have fun.
How important is that? Absolutely.
Very important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to go real quick. Hi, Chris Kerr. I'm so glad you're on tonight. And we've got, he's saying, "Hey, Paul." I don't know if you guys know each other, but Chris Kerr is on, watching you, watching us. And then we've got Larry Feldman. Hey, good evening, Becky and Paul.
Sir.
Thank you so much, Larry Feldman, for being on tonight. And then a Facebook user, don't know exactly who that is, but good evening. And thank you again for being on with us tonight. So with that said, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to make sure I said hello to everyone that's here with us tonight.
No, please. Yeah. And I would encourage them to send questions in as we go through some of the slides I want to share with you. So NADA and Dallas, we hadn't been back there since 1995. So we're not sure. Yeah. NADA has not been back to Dallas since 95.
I think I heard that.
Just like it was back in 1995.
But it was the conference hall was, everything had been remodeled, right? Do I have that correct? Since 1995? Yeah.
Yeah, and
It's kind of
it
cool.
was
Yeah.
very well attended.
Yes.
I would say the intention levels of the dealer body that was there, from dealers to management, and even vendor partners, was so strong. To the number one question was, how do I get myself? How do I conquer 2023, especially coming off of the last 3 years? And then I asked, I'm not sure if I got the right people to carry me through 2023 and for what the times that are coming. Because most, like you and I talked about, Becky, most of the new people came on when things were good. you know, I have a buddy of mine. He used to tell me, he goes, I love a Honda GM who brags about how good he is, to a Chrysler GM who's keeping pace with sales. So they're both selling the same amount of new and used cars, and then they flip and find out who's really good,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You know, and I
Well,
think that's
right.
the market we're having now.
Well, I know dealers are, I mean, there's a lot of salespeople that have been hired over the past 2 or 3 years that were like even promoted into F&I thinking they died and went to heaven. It's like, yeah, I love this business. This is great. Where have I been all my
Correct.
life? Giddy up, let's go. And now it's like, uh, and it's not everyone. So I want you to talk a little bit about that. There are things that are happening and that maybe we're going to have to take a look, which you're talking through, that you've got to be you've got to be able to harness and realize that there are certain processes and procedures you got to put in place and have an understanding of to continue to get through some of what may happen in the next couple months in the economy. So I'm going to go ahead and let you get into that. And so you just let me know when you're ready for your
Which screen do you see? Do you see a full screen or partial screen?
I've got it right now. We're
All right,
here.
let's go to let
Yes.
me get that to a full screen. Do you see a
Okay.
full screen now?
Yep.
Perfect.
I think.
And I'll ask, Becky, stop me, ask me some questions as we go through this. Uh, the the evidence. This is data of evidence that if you follow these steps and the suggestions and guidelines, you will do a world of service for your dealer body. And if you're a vendor partner and you're looking to, or an entrepreneur, and you're looking to figure out what you could do to help improve the business for the next couple of years, this is some good information. And this is nothing new. I've done a couple hundred of shows since the beginning of the pandemic, and you'll recognize that a lot of the talking points is consistent. These are the things that we have to pay attention to, and let's not take for granted the industry as a whole. So I just flipped the screen, and it should say affordability crisis. You guys see that?
No, I see. I see your first slide. I don't see the second slide.
Maybe it's a little bit of a lag. Sorry about that.
Wonder if I touch it. No, I can't touch it.
Let's go back. Hold on. Let me try this again. Let me stop sharing and reset the connection. Maybe sometimes that has to do with it. Technology is wonderful when it works right.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important that again, where are we? Where are we at, and where are we going, and what's happening, and why it's important for dealers to be able to know how to manage it better.
All right.
Right?
So
You want me to add?
this
Okay,
just
here we
did
go.
I want to present I want to do
Here's what I'll do. Next
hold on one
slide. How
second.
about that? You tell me next slide. The next slide is up.
Uh, can, can you hit back? Go.
You want me to go back? Okay.
All right. Now go forward. See if it'll do something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It went
Went too far. This is slide 2.
Yeah, that's not the right one. So let's stop this one. For some reason, it just must be the last presentation that came up. Don't worry, I've got it. I'm going to just share my screen.
Hey, Larry, good to see you tonight. And then Tony's in the house. Hey, Tony, good to see you tonight. Paul's trying to get his PowerPoints
Tony.
up there, and you guys know each other. Tony, yep. Everybody should know. You want me to do this
All
one?
right. You should see the, yes, if you can hit
All right.
next.
How about this one?
Is
Do you
it
want this one? The graph, the affordability crisis.
Yes, perfect.
Yes.
Great. All right, so
Hey,
I'm gonna let you drive,
Corley's
and I'll see
on,
from here.
and Brooke
So the
Furnace is
affordability
on
crisis.
too. You got a full house tonight there, Paul. You better giddy up.
So Becky, you know that about a year ago, I started talking about the affordability crisis. About a year ago, and was cautioning on the things we need to be prepared for, including the training that we need to do in our stores. And a year before that, I was been discussing the need for demand. Be careful about creating demand destruction. How the pricing increases of inventory, both new and used, was creating a situation where it was become harder and harder for consumers to afford, and we might end up pricing ourselves out. And here we are. You know, we've actually accomplished that. So if you take a look at this graph, these are all the new vehicle sales. This is put up by Cox Automotive, and it is. Let's see. I wonder why it's not giving you, because you're showing the small screen. Can everyone see the screen okay, do you think?
I don't know. I'm thinking they can.
Okay.
I can check on my
So we'll just go ahead. So the new car sales, we know, top 10, right about just shy of 14 million, like 13.8 million new cars. Still a little bit more than last year, but very, very low. Third year in a row where we haven't sold enough, what I call used car factory sales. Every new vehicle is the next new used car in year 0, 1, 2, and 3. Those are the prime vehicles for dealers today. A 0 to 3-year-old car. Would you agree? Or just
yes.
For right? And if you take a look, you could see the blue line is 2022 versus the gray of 2021. Sorry, I can't see that. There's that 20. The gray line's 2021, and the blue's 2022. And just a slight lift, but years are low in comparison to prior years. If you take a look at
so what is the gray again? I'm
so
sorry. What is the gray again? The gray is saying
the
what?
Gray.
I see a gray and then I see a dark blue.
2021 sales volume, new car sales volume.
Got it.
Right, and the blue line, the blue graph is for 2022 sales.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, wow.
Not much year over year, but we've had 3 years of depressed new car sales. Hence the reason why we've been going after pre-owned.
Okay.
Cox in mid-December said that they anticipated the SAR rate to be roughly 35 million used vehicles sold by the end of December. Depending on who you talk to, it's 36.5 to 37.5 million pre-owned cars were sold. That's down from where we are used to selling about 40 to 43 million on average used vehicles a year. The challenge, though, is when you start thinking in terms of the number of dealers that's in the market, right? The number of dealers. If you click next. Or just go to slide. Actually, it's not letting you do it, is it?
Hold on. It isn't.
I could do it then. Did it go to the big screen?
It's on the big screen. It's just not on the second slide or the third slide. We're still on the affordability crisis slide.
Sorry for the complication on the technology here.
That's okay, Paul.
All right, let's try this.
You got some good stuff.
How's this?
Oh, do you want me to try it?
You see 2022 mid-year report?
Yep. Yep.
Perfect. So we got it right.
I don't know why. I don't know
so
how
this
to.
Is.
Yeah.
I got it. I should be able to move it now.
Okay.
Did it just change screens again?
Yeah. The car with the money
Perfect.
around it.
Perfect.
Okay, we're
So
rocking. We're going. Okay.
mid-year 2022 NADA data on number of new car franchises in the country. They said 16,752 new car franchise dealerships, right? So let's take the highest prediction for new vehicle production this year. Let's say we sell every single one, 15 million units. That's by Mary Barrera of GM. If you divide that 15 million new units by 16,752 franchise dealers, that's 895 cars a year, 75 units a month. Without used vehicles, you and I both know that's not enough volume for any new car dealer to stay in business without used cars.
That's right.
So it's just not enough. But let's just say, for argument's sake, that maybe 16,700 is too low. And there's some analysts, like IBIS New Car World Report said, that they think there's 18,700, 1,000 more rooftops. All that does is just dilute the availability of new cars per month per dealer. So now that dealer's selling 67 new cars a month if he sold 100% of his allocation. Now, think in terms of how does a dealer offset the lower production of available new cars. Now, we do see inventory levels are increasing some, mainly because prices are still strong and the interest rates are getting high. And we're also seeing a lot of pullback of approvals based on the current credit conditions that's in the marketplace today.
So we've got a higher in, okay, so what's happening right now, let's really talk through that a little bit. We have the rates are climbing, right? They're not going down.
That's right.
And so now we also have customer payments are at an all-time high. I think the average car payment now is at $757.
700.
700. And
Right.
then some are saying something about even up to $1,000. So, which is absolutely tough to swallow. I mean, I just can't even imagine. So that hits. And then you have loan to value. So now you have your lenders and what they're willing to buy.
So the part of the affordability crisis is the fact that payments are so high.
Yeah.
The average new car payment is a little more north of 700. Q4, roughly 16% of all new vehicles financed were paying $1,000 or more a month. But that's the illusion. And Becky, we've got to put in how much is it for automobile insurance, and then the cost to drive that vehicle, which is gas. Now you factor those two financial numbers in, and now you're looking at a $1,500 monthly spend for a vehicle on 16% of the loans that were done in Q4.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
and banks are worried about that. They're incredibly worried, so worried that they've 8 of the top 10 lenders have taken a look at their reserves and realized we might be light in consideration to the depreciation of used vehicles, as well as the risk associated that as interest rates rise, and some people have credit cards that are tied to a variable rate interest rate, the payment keeps going up. The same thing on if they've done a 5-1 ARM or a 2-1 ARM on a mortgage, and those rates start to go up, payments become unaffordable. So what do people do? 8 of the top 10 had billions in financial reserves, and each one of them has decided to put additional reserves on top of what they already had. A great example is Bank of America. They had $2.7 billion in reserves, and then took a look at their data, looked at the valuation of their portfolio, and realized that this used vehicle inventory, based on the risk, we may not have enough money to protect ourselves. So they added another $1.2 billion to it.
So why? So they call that, right. So they're adding that to the CECL amount that they have set up aside for any loan defaults. And so now they're thinking we're going to get hit even, much harder. So now, like you said, as an example, who was that? Bank of America has put in an additional $1.2 billion into that reserve, along with your other 6 or 7 major lenders who are doing the same thing. So dealers, they need to have a better understanding of this because, again, those lenders are not going to. They're not going to be as they're not going to be as forgiving when it comes to buying the loan. They're going to
Right.
back up some, right? And
They are. They
then
are.
talk about performing loans. I mean, and I know it does happen. So lenders are looking at how do dealers' portfolios are responding. Do they have more repos than
Correct.
others?
And they will look at that. They will hopefully, because they have been so proactive and shoring up their reserves, that even if let's say they go through all of their reserves, that means that they're on stable footing. They met plan. However, they're going to go back and take a look and measure which one of the partners, meaning dealers, put them in the worst position. Maybe those are the ones they need to pull back from and do less business with, and focus on the ones that were less harmful to their overall business in the long run. That still remains to be seen what's going to happen. Uh, we predict that it's going to be the next 9 months is going to be a very turbulent time in the auto industry, but we're going to make through it. Can
Yeah.
you see the auto loan delinquencies are rising?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Here's
So
what to do if you're trying.
February 4th, this was
That's
just
funny.
put out.
Hmm.
All right. And it's, if you just go by the title, right, 26%, 26.7% higher delinquency rates in December than it was in a year earlier. It's deceptive. You really, oh my God, it's 26.7%. The reality is of all loans, only 1.84% was severely delinquent, which was increased from 1.74 in November, highest
Hmm.
rate since February 2009. So we know that there's a subset of consumers who are struggling because of the higher payments. I share this because this all goes back into the 4 key points I've been messaging. Watch out for deep depreciation. When that starts to happen, check, it's happening. Pay attention to what the Fed's doing. And the Fed's using old school methodology for new age problems that we're experiencing, because most of what we are experiencing was not because the economy or manufacturing or people just couldn't afford it. It comes out from the pandemic, then the supply chain crisis, and then the chip crisis, and then the Ukraine war started, and we discovered that, oh my God, half of our wiring harnesses come from Ukraine, and then a significant percentage of some raw minerals that we need to manufacture some of the components that go into cars come through that part of the world. Then you combine that with the runaway M2 money printing,
Hmm. Right.
which which leads to our inflation. Now we have an affordability crisis, something that's not been done ever. Right. So the next 9 months will really show us what we need to do differently. And I love what Elon Musk said. He said, he did an interview on millionaire investors. He said, booms don't last forever, but neither do recessions. And we had 14 years of a boom, and we are way overdue for a recession. And how bad it will be is based on the Fed regulations. And that I think is what we have to be careful with, right? Is what those regulations will be. All right. So you see my next slide?
Yep, I do. So let me see if I can't get it. Yeah.
All right.
Mhm.
So we entered 2022, 2023 with a 20%, a little bit more than 20% drop in wholesale valuations, effective from first week of August through the end of the year. And you can go back and find my vlog that I put out in the first week of August, where I warned everyone, start thinning your inventory now. And as you acquire new inventory, don't look at today's part prices. Assume just November, December prices and start buying for then. And then in December, when you're buying more inventory, you need to buy it with an eye for depreciation in February and March. Those dealers who did are in a really good condition. This is our wholesale index that we see here, and we're projecting probably another 18% drop in market valuation
Okay.
through most of the summer. But
Mm.
that's not a bad thing. What that means is we're still going to a 2000 a $10,000 vehicle in 2019 that was 10,000 is still going to be a $13,000 vehicle in 2023, even with another 18% drop, because we started 2022 at a 151% increase in wholesale valuations. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right.
Yes. Yeah.
So we're still struggling with finding vehicles that are affordable, so that when a dealer puts their margin and the lender wants to put their rates, it's a payment that makes sense for the consumer. Now, how are wholesale prices impacting retail prices? Do we see that same kind of drop? And we don't. What's encouraging is that we are still selling used cars, we're still selling new cars, and we're still selling it at a retained higher retail price. As you can see here, we're roughly 95% of where we ended the year at. So we were at 136% coming into 2023. We're right about 131% retail asking price. And people are paying it. People are still paying the price, right? So
that's what I'm hearing.
What I do see is we're starting to see a slowdown in depreciation on the wholesale side, as buyers are stepping up to buy to prepare for the spring and spring market and tax market. We do see that happening.
Right.
Here's where I think we need to be cautious about planning for how we finance our vehicles, how much we pay for our cars. This is the returning available used inventory, and why I think used vehicle prices will stay higher than the traditional average. And as you can see, the big red square for 2023, 2024, and 25, 5% fewer used vehicles up to 8 years old are coming back into the market. We know that we saw 6% already fewer pre-owned cars in last year. So we're anticipating 5% fewer, and then 2% fewer in 2024, and then another 1% fewer than 2025. You have to think in terms of where's that mix coming from, right? So this is the breakdown of consumers who finance, lease returns, repossessions, and rental returns, and then the top are fleet.
Okay.
We know that since we didn't do a lot of rentals and a lot of fleets, right? And we had since 2020, we had low sales, new car sales years.
That's right.
If you look at 2023, all right, we'll see about 7.8 potential consumer trades that are available. Potential. You have to remember that if any one of those were bought within the last 3 years, I bet you they got 10,000 plus or more negative equity.
That's right. Yep.
Right. So that's going to be a struggle. We're
that
not going
is
to be
going to
able
be
to
a struggle.
trade,
yeah.
Right. We have to think about that. And then and the lenders know. The lenders are not going to do 145% plus.
No.
Not if they're at risk today.
That's right.
The blue represents lease returns. And I'll give you a great example. My aunt, she had a 2020 Kia Telluride with 35,000 miles on it, low miles. And the Kia dealer in Philly was begging her, please, we got to buy your car. And then we'll put you in a new one. Well, the new one would have been $200 more a month. She couldn't afford it. She's on a fixed income. She's retired. And so she asked me what she should do. I said, buy your car. Your lease commitment is 25 grand, buy it. If you buy for 25 grand and choose to sell it in a year, you could probably still make about 10 to 15 grand on that vehicle. And that's what she did. She bought it. She kept it. The dealer was angry with her.
Oh, I'm sure he was salivating for it.
Yeah. And I think you'll see a majority.
What are you talking about? You're going to go ahead and keep it. Are you kidding me? But
I think
I'm hearing more and more dealers are asking or thinking about going back to, we need to do more leasing here, Becky. We're not doing enough. And I think we got away from it. We got away from leasing over the last 2 years. Maybe it was because of reshituals, that sort of thing. It was for the quick buck. Don't get me wrong. I can tell you how many, just call it the way it is, how many dealers would say, hey, it's a 3-year lease or a 2-year lease. How much can I make on that? If I can flip that to a 72-month finance term, I'm going to do it.
Right.
And it was interesting because I'm thinking, boy, if I did that when I was growing up in the business, I'm going to tell you, they would have thrown me out of the dealership. I'm like, that was
Correct. Right.
sacrilegious. You don't do that. This is
Don't do
a
that at all.
lease 24, 36 months, never convert that over to financing. And here we are today. Especially over the past 2-3 years, that's exactly what's been happening. Saying.
Equifax, I recently talked about leasing in there. So Equifax puts a monthly article on the finance market, right? And they were, I think it was 16%, if I remember right, in Q3 through October. 16% of vehicles were leased, which is, as you know, is very, very low. The one area that is also of a concern for us, we say is 1.6. Those are repos, 1.6 million, and even though the delinquency rate is ramping up month over month, it's getting higher and higher as a percentage, we're not seeing and hearing that the lenders are pulling the trigger to repossess the vehicle. I'm hearing the same thing from my repo partners that are out there. They've got this, they're ramping up, they're trying to get staff, but they're just not getting the calls. They're not that. The hard thing is that you really can't count what's running through the lane as a repo, because lenders don't like to identify that the vehicle that they're remarketing was a repo, because they typically know that dealers won't pay them good money for it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That could be. That very well could be. That well, and again, that plays into. So, I'm not. When we were doing leases with Ford, I can tell you we did leases with customers who had slow pay history. Let's just call it that. And we collected some security deposits, and it was a good deal. It was good for Ford. It was good for the customer. But then I heard, well, I don't know, you got to be careful. And I'm like,
right. Well, I ended up leasing in first week of January. A buddy of mine called me and said, I need your help. Dropped he had a 2020 Jeep Grand Cherokee, dropped off for service at low miles, and they're begging to buy it from him. But they didn't build a rich story about why they wanted to buy his car, that the check writing number they offered him was a really, really good number in comparison to what they were going to be able to sell it for. He was getting a piece of the potential profit margin too, but they didn't tell him that. Mm-hmm. So he was unsure. When I looked at the deal he was getting, I was like, oh my God, I got to go check that out. And it was almost a $64,000 Jeep that he got for $425 a month for 2 years.
Wow. I got to tell you, I think that more and more dealers are thinking through and want to be able to show customers options on financing and leasing now. And we got a lot of people that need to be trained up on leasing. They kind of forgot, some of the skill set when it comes to it.
You and I both know that they haven't been training well. They don't know how to talk about subprime and help that kind of customer, and they definitely don't know how to lease. I found that out when I leased my wife her car. I basically gave them the lease structure. Here's how you do it.
Or
best
they
years
freak
to
out
buy.
when you say, "Hey, try to do it by hand." By hand. Well, if you learn how to do it by hand, then you're going to be able to. You'll figure it out. It's once you do it by hand, you'll always have a understanding of how leases, work. But anyway,
that's right. It makes it so easy when you do that.
Yes.
So migrating to the challenge between financing, finding the right car that you can sell it for the right price, that's affordable, considering the market that we're entering, the economic uncertainty that we have now.
That's right.
If you take the red square, I've encircled the 2013 through 2019. But there's a problem with the 2017, 18, and 19. We poached the hell as dealers. We went after owners of 2017, 18, and 19 like crazy the last couple of years.
That's right.
And any of those that were resold in the last couple of years, as we said earlier, massive negative equity on those units. So we have to find those unicorns, those 2013s through 2019, sitting in people's driveways with less than average or average miles. And these are consumers who don't know what they have. I firmly believe that there's a good majority of people. There's 313 million, or was it maybe 320 million? I can't remember the number. It's one of those two numbers vehicles in operation.
Well,
300.
I
Good.
hear Brian Kramer talking about the importance of putting together a process in service, even to
Right. Incredible
advance
opportunity.
that, right?
Hmm. So
And I
people
don't know
tell
why
me,
more dealers wouldn't do that. I hear that it's not happening, and I'm like, why wouldn't it happen? I don't know. I'm just thinking that would be a prime place to, shop for acquisitions. That's for sure. And my conversation I had with you last year on the
uh-huh,
refi, and
right,
that went to deaf ears. I mean, they just couldn't understand where I was going with that. But I said,
right.
even that alone, you can get more conversation started about, the current vehicle that they're financing that they're not necessarily trading in, that never thought, you know what, maybe I would sell it if I got the right number, if I got the right number for it. So it
That's right.
opens that conversation up even.
Right.
Yeah.
It sure does. So here's the
Mhm.
reason why that this becomes important,
Okay.
for us to pay attention to these year ranges. You see the shady. We don't anticipate the used car market that won't fully recover to pre-pandemic levels until 2020, 25, and maybe a little bit afterwards. And we're not the only persons that's saying that. The street put an article out that said they don't believe the market will recover until 2025. So
Wow.
the way to find that unicorn, because we already know the 0 to 3 year old inventory is going to be hard to get, and when you get it, you're going to have to pay good money for it, and you better have good lenders who trust you and will give you the advance that you need on the kind of customers that you're going to be getting.
Well,
So now you have to go back.
I don't even mean to cut you off there, but I got to say something on that. This is why it's critical more than ever before to make sure you have the right training at the desk. Desk managers, just submitting deals
Absolutely.
haphazardly to lenders, right? To shotgun deals and not
Mhm.
know how lenders buy. This is why this is
Mhm.
so critical. I just had to say that. Sorry.
Without No, you're 100% right. So without giving too much away, there are some fintech companies that are creating programs that start with the payment first and then match available inventory based on the customer's payment and the consumer guidelines and qualifications. So now the
Amen.
consumer is more in control. I can pay a 450 payment. What's available in the marketplace that fits my 450 payment? Here's my top 10 list. Who's going to give me this deal the way I need to get it? And the lender, I'm already pre-approved. That with technology, you could do that, right?
Hmm.
So how do you get that inventory? We already said it. First, the secret sauce is buying it through your service department, but also by creating a market presence in your community that you want to buy their inventory. So
Okay.
my strategy is find every consumer, and there are marketing companies that can tell you who owns a 2013 through 2018 model piece of car in their inventory, in their lot. I'm sorry, in their driveway, and market to them through whatever marketing means you can, inviting them to your store for free safety and service inspection. And they come in, you got a check writing offer. About a third of the people will buy, will take the deal. A third will consider service, and some of those people will need help with financing. If they need help with service finance, I have partners that can help with that. Now, here's the kicker: you get someone pre-approved for, let's say, up to 6,500 for service repairs. Now
Hmm.
you can figure out a way to use that 6,500, which is done on like a virtual credit card that goes on an app on your phone, and now you're able to use that, trade their vehicle, and get them into a like new used car, and you've got all that extra cash you just got the customer approved for. There are creative ways you could do that, and you'll buy more vehicles from the lot. I had a friend of mine asked me to visit with him at a dealership, and he said, tell me more about this idea you got. So I got into an Uber, and on the way there, I asked the Uber driver, "What year is this car?" It's a 2013 Chrysler 200 with 85,000 miles, low miles for 2013, and the car looked really good. It was very
Hmm.
clean. Guy was 77 years old. He's retired, did nothing to do, drives for fun, and takes care of his car. While talking to him, I said, "I bet you've got 2 or 3 other cars in the driveway." And he's like, "Yeah, I do. How do you know?" I said, "You're retired. You've got cars you like to fool around with." He's, "Yeah, I do." His name was Carl. I said, "Tell me about your other cars." And this is on the way to do a to talk about this with a dealer and the GM, friends of mine. So
Uh-huh.
he tells me that in his parked side by side, he's got a 2013 Chrysler 300 that he bought for his wife when he bought that 200, and then he has a 2018 Mercedes 300 that also had 35,000 miles. So two cars. One was a 2013 Chrysler 300 with 35,000 miles, and the other one was a 2018 Mercedes with roughly 35,000 miles. And he told me that he and his wife were discussing how they could figure out to get more money into their investment accounts to help with their retirement. I said, there are two cars. I think you could probably get between 25 and 30 grand and have that in your bank account by Friday. He's like, no shit. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that.
No, no
But
shit. That's okay.
that's exactly what he said. He goes, man. I said, do me a favor. I'll pay you. I'll give you an extra tip. Just wait here in the parking lot. And I came back out 15 minutes later. The used car manager, dealer, and my buddy. We walked around his car. We looked at the pictures. His wife sent him the VIN number, took a picture of the odometer of both cars that were in the driveway. They ended up buying the 300 and the Mercedes that was sitting in the garage and put $30,000 in that guy's account. That guy was not looking to sell his car. I believe there's a large community of consumers who are in that position who don't know they can do that.
Yeah, I bet you're correct. And it is about how do we reach, like you said, how do we reach that customer in that community at that, and how do we do a better job? One of the things could be, an outreach program on Facebook, social media. I also know of technology where it's really kind of cool. And I thought it was pretty unique in that it will allow engagement via a video call right with that dealer. So
Mm-hmm.
it round robins to a sales associate that actually picks up on the call, and then it's not only to obviously sell cars, but also, again, it can lead to other trade acquisitions. It just really depends on how you market it, right?
That's right.
The
That's right.
AI that's available that you utilize to engage with that customer. But the idea is to think through it and the idea behind it, right? And then the technology will play a part in helping you to score those deals.
I bet you can teach. Dealers need to learn how to absorb negative equity, how to structure that deal to absorb that kind of negative equity, and that it's okay if they have to lose a couple thousand or several thousand on the front end. There's a way
Mhm.
that they can offset it on the back for the short term. At least do
Well,
that until
yeah.
they right size their inventory.
So let me ask you a question. Can, I guess we can ask here, um, is that, I know Dignify offers some sort of ability to get the additional cash down to get out from under, but that is more on, and you got to be
It's
careful
ser-
minded how you
it,
go about that, doing that
it's
too.
service. It's a service finance program. So that's a part where you get that customer in the service department and you write up an RO. It says, Becky, I hate to tell you, you've got about $3,000 worth of work that needs to be done for it to be safe. Right. And if you were to say, I don't have 3 grand, well, don't worry. I can get you instantly approved right now. It takes me 5 minutes. Here's a QR code. Snap this QR code and
Okay.
answer a couple questions, and you get you up to $6,500 in your pocket.
Okay. So
On
very
actually,
similar to Dignify. I think
yes,
it
it
is
is.
Dignify.
It is. Dignify is
Okay.
one,
Yeah.
and I've got
Yeah.
two other fintech startups that are doing the same thing.
Oh,
Right.
really?
So
We'll have to talk. We'll have to let me
yeah,
know what that's all
so,
about there, Paul. I'd like to know more about that. I think that that's a fantastic idea.
yeah, and that would help with the negative equity situation.
Absolutely, it will.
Hmm.
And yeah. So, and how they do it, because that's the, yes,
What we don't
that
need
would
to
be
do.
interesting. How I have to talk to you about that and some of the, you got to, be careful about certain things. Uh, So let me just, I'll talk to you outside of this
Yeah,
conference call, this call,
I think the thing,
live call.
the other warning we got to talk about, Becky, is we have to get away from 72 month aid. I heard someone tell me the other day that probably 10% of what was sold was 120 payments, 120-month financing. You know, think about that.
It's,
You're
you know why that's happening? And
mm-hmm,
again, that's why I talk about, I get in here and I talk about sales training. Sales training and desk training is so important. F&I training, I get it. It is very important as well. It's all important. But if
mm-hmm,
we're not right in the deal before it makes their way into F&I, what do you expect? I mean, now we're just saving a deal, right? Where
mm-hmm,
are we really impacting the performance of that deal? And do we really expect the customer to take the additional debt on and afford at that higher payment? When in fact, if we would have started out right on the right vehicle that that customer actually qualifies for from the
mm-hmm.
very beginning, and
Correct.
be able then to have that right lender that buys that customer at better terms. And of course, while we're at it, why are we extending terms out as 72, 75, 84 months, no money down on the first pencil? And then
I know.
everyone's telling me, I've got this. No, you don't have this. So this is why I'm like, okay, you tell me, what are you using? I'm using ePencil. I'm using Vin Solutions. And I'm like, okay, well, let's take a look at of how you do that. How do you do that? Why wouldn't I much rather have a build your deal approach and be more consistent in that presentation than I ever could be on the e-lead pencil that we put out at first, our first pencil at 84 months with no money down on subvented interest rates that no longer exist.
Right.
You see where I'm going with that?
100%.
Okay.
But again, that's part of the criteria since the beginning of the pandemic. I've been talking about we have to let's not get into this false sense of security. Let's take this time and train and get really good at the things that will make the difference when the market turns back around. It's like Brian. Oh my goodness,
Kramer?
not
No,
Kramer.
no.
Ben Stock. I love what he
Brighton.
said.
Oh yeah, Brent Benson.
Fix your roof when it's sunny. Right? We had 3 years of sunny weather in selling cars.
Fix your roof when it's
How
sunny. That's
many
good.
dealers did the right kind of training to be ready for the rainy season, which is now? Right? That they're not worried about having to make their salespeople effective at presenting subprime options or even leasing options. The desk is solid. The inventory process is solid. We should have been practicing and getting really good the last 3 years. And my fear is we didn't do that.
So we
But
have
that
some
doesn't mean we can't
comments.
stop.
Stephen Apicella, the data is always
Hello.
powerful and clear. What we as an industry do with the date is critical for health and growth. Otherwise, we're just informed. Bravo, Paul and Rebecca. Yay, Steve Apicella. You know, I met Steve at NADA this year for the first time face to face, and there he was, and there I was, and it was like, oh my God, Stephen Apicella and his team. So that was terrific seeing you. I don't know if you're still on with us or not, but Stephen, it was a pleasure seeing you, and I'm glad we finally had a chance to meet face to face. But those are some of these best practices that you put in place that really can make a big, and it does make a big impact into really holding others accountable to those process to
This is
that
just
process,
water.
whatever that process or plan is. And everyone's a little bit different, right? Everyone, every dealer is a little bit is certainly different. There's no such thing as a cookie cutter program. But one of the things that I like about Brian Kramer, and I talked to Stephen Westner last night, is the fact that we have to have some critical thinking taking place here. And we have to review the process, and we have to check where are our inefficiencies and how can we make a greater impact in what we're doing with our technology and our people coming together. So he said,
That's
it's
right.
not the technology I love this. It's not that I'm going to end up owning this one day. But he said, it's not the technology that's going to replace the human factor. It's the individual that takes advantage of the technology, that partners
That's right.
with that technology to get the impact. And there it is. But I mean, you got to work smart. You got to be
Yep.
forward thinking.
I call I have a people, process, and technology, PPT, and that not PowerPoint, right? It's the same thing, right? But it's people, process, technology, and it's got to be done in that order.
People,
Yes,
process,
you're
and
right.
technology. Absolutely. And
Hmm.
I think sometimes we get apprehensive, a little intimidated by it. But, once we really field it out and really have a better understanding of the ability that and what it does and how it can make our lives that much easier and better, um, I think, so I dummified it down to like from the time when we first implemented menu selling back in the day. And I think you remember those days, Paul. And then from there, it was like, oh my gosh, we're automating the menu. But it did a world of good, didn't it?
It
Because
did.
if everybody remember handwriting that menu, not everybody remembers that, I know.
I know.
But when we went to automation, when that automated that menu, it made it so much easier. It reduced all the mistakes. It made it much more efficient. That's what happened. We didn't have to look up rates. It all automated, and it just made it that much easier and faster to go ahead and print out a menu to present.
Right.
And that's what we're
I
talking
remember
about.
and that's what we have to get better at, doing more of what we're used to doing. And we are a resilient business. Our business is incredibly resilient, and I'm super excited what's going to happen. I just know we have to go through some pain first, and once we get through that, we'll be good.
So Chris Kerr says the biggest inefficiencies I see today, and he's in dealerships all over the country, as you well know, I
Hmm.
see today across dealer groups is the communication breakdown from salespeople to prospects before they're ever in the store. I am seeing so many potential sales lost before they get to the store.
Hmm.
Paul, what do you, are I
100.
I
I
couldn't
agree.
agree.
70 was actually Brian Kramer said it at NADA. So like 90 some odd percent consumers are spending on average about 12 hours shopping online, doing all the research from A to Z. They know more about the process and the car, and then they go to a dealer, and the dealer says, "How can I help you?" When they've done all the research, they put all the information in, they've emailed the data that they've been doing, and they got to start all over again.
I
That's
think
very
that's the
frustrating.
biggest pain point for a lot of, our customers where they are finding themselves, they're online, they're fact finding, dealers, some, not all still yet, but giving flexibility for customers to have a better understanding of their payment terms, options that would be available. And here they come into the dealership, and it's like, oh, we were only kidding. We're going to start all over again. What are you
That's
talking
right.
about? And that really has got to change. And we have to do a better job in, and I'll, hey, all of us do. All of us do. I think car dealers are resilient as all get out. I get it. During COVID, they got it. They were resilient. I'm going to do everything I can to get to that customer sooner rather than later. And that's
Right.
what they have to remember, that how important is that engagement, and how do we get to that and get in front of that customer sooner rather than later. I see AI as a way of chasing to that engagement sooner rather than later and getting customers on board and keeping it a lot more efficient for
That's
customers
right.
to complete and buy a car, and dumbing it down, make it user friendly, make it credible. Because when we make it credible, user friendly, people buy from people that they like.
You will
Um,
see more than that. All of that.
Salespeople are not adding value via email or text because they don't understand how to build and hold a conversation. He certainly sees that a lot via these platforms. Bottom line is they are buying somewhere if they aren't buying from you.
That's right. He's
I
right.
agree with that. I certainly agree with that. So we've got about 4 minutes left, and I'm sure you want to get to your wife and get to have a glass of wine at your restaurant and tell your guys there. I said thank you again for not standing me up there, Paul. But some valuable, great information. But before we go ahead and call it an evening, um, any last remarks for us?
Well, I just stay focused when you're when you're acquiring inventory, do it with an eye towards, on average, losing about a point a week in valuation, right? So if you got over age inventory now, sell it now. Don't wait. It's just not going to get any better.
So you're saying whatever you do, just get it out. Just do it. Just get rid of it. Let's go. And don't sit on it. Don't wait and hope and pray that things are going to change. That's what you're saying.
Right. It's going to change, right? But it's going to take we got to go through some pain. You can also, we talk about Jason Rice a lot, Pop. I highly recommend, if you're in trouble, if you're a dealer, listen to this call and you're in trouble with inventory, connect with Jason Rice at LotPop.
Yep. He's good people. Jason Rice, one of these days I'm going to get you on here too. He's so busy, but good for you that you are. In fact, we're actually going to be on a panel together in June for the NIADA panel with Nick Zulovich, and I'm looking forward to that. And I believe it's going to be a great panel as we talk through what's going on in the industry as well. So will you be there at that event?
I may. I'm not sure.
Come on, Paul. Be there at that event. You got other commitments, of course.
I do.
I'm telling you, you're too busy. You're just too busy. Thank you again for making time for me tonight, making time for everyone else. We really appreciate you and glad that you were able to be here with us tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and
take care.
Make sure we got this.